I want to get right into it today with a Middle East update. We seem to be inching closer to an Iranian strike on Israel. If you remember, Israel killed about 7 of their IRGC leaders in a building near an embassy in Damascus, Syria. News was coming out that there have been desperate attempts at a ceasefire in Gaza over the last couple of days. Iran said that they would not strike Israel if an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza was agreed to, with the full withdrawal of IDF troops along with no operation into Rafah. Reports say that the proposed ceasefire from Israel to Hamas was a temporary ceasefire with full hostage release, but still an operation into Rafah. Iran and Hamas rejected this ceasefire publicly. This could mean that Iran was holding off on an attack on Israel to see if a deal could get reached, and now that it hasn't been reached and has been rejected, that they may strike now that deal hasn't been agreed to. Iran may say, well, if that's the best you got and that's the best that we're going to come to in terms of a ceasefire, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to get involved in this war along with maybe Hezbollah and other Iranian proxies. The IDF has been withdrawing troops from Gaza, except where the divide between northern part and the southern part of Gaza is. Benjamin Netanyahu made a video saying that this is only to let the troops rest and recover before an operation into Rafah begins. So it seems that an operation into Rafah is a non-negotiable for Israel. They believe that this is the last objective that needs to be completed before Hamas is fully defeated. And the United States needs to let Israel complete the job to finish it and also support them along the way. The U.S. was very much against this operation into Rafah, saying that it would be catastrophic for the innocent civilians, that they would have nowhere to go, and that that Israel had a responsibility to house these people in the meantime if they do move into Rafah, which is pretty crazy. I mean, I'm not saying that these civilians should be killed, obviously. Only Hamas members should be attacked, but that the fact that Israel has a responsibility to house people that aren't their own civilians and their own citizens seems pretty crazy to me. The United States did say that they sort of came together and agreed to an operation into Rafah that the United States was okay with. But on top of Rafah, that the United States has been delaying and only hurting Israel in its objective to defeat Hamas. It's only been a speed bump to Israel. The United States has only made things harder for Israel. And there's many different reasons for that. Obviously, the Biden administration realizes that they're losing voters. They're younger anti-Semitic voters, which appears to be, all of the young voters appear to be anti-Semitic in the Democratic Party these days, sadly. So they realize that they're losing those voters, and this may be a political move to show, look, we're not really backing Israel. They're trying to play both sides of the fence here, support Israel, but also be a speed bump to Israel and give the show that they're not supporting Israel to try to appeal to their younger voters. So, like I said, although they said that they're now on board with a Rafah operation into Israel, this is not the only thing the United States has been a speed bump for Israel in. But now, like I said, a ceasefire deal has been rejected from Hamas, and the end of Ramadan is now upon us. Iran may now strike soon within the next coming of days. I talked in previous podcast about how experts believe the ending of Ramadan could launch an escalation in the Middle East. And now that this ceasefire has been rejected and, there's been reports that Iran has been putting missiles and drones into ready positions, that on top of the end of Ramadan all kind of coming together, it seems that more and more pieces are being placed for an escalation in the Middle East as time goes on. And, Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, has made some threatening speeches, per usual, talking about Israel, saying that the coming days for Israel will be hard for them, and that decisions have been made in Iran to strike Israel. He also said something about how the process may appear to be long to people, but it's sort of a psychological move towards Israel, that they're anticipating an attack from Iran and they don't know when it's going to come. So more and more threatening rhetoric from Hezbollah and Iran, for that matter. But the pieces appear to be coming into play for a strike on Israel directly from Iran. And when that happens, that will be probably the biggest escalation possible in the Middle East, because now you have the head of the snake of Iran fully being in a war with Israel instead of just as proxies of, Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis. So if that happens, where Iran does strike Israel, that will be the spark needed to launch a full regional war in the Middle East. And, the United States has only enabled Iran in this because we have not shown them strength. We've only shown them weakness, giving them $6 billion for hostages, saying that, oh, well, we're going to track this money to where it can't be used for terrorist operations. Yeah, dummies. Money, just because they're not going to use the exact money that we give them, they can now move money around. $6 billion comes in here. We can move more money here to then launch a terrorist attack. And it was not long after that transfer happened of $6 billion from the United States to Iran that October 7th happened. I don't think that's a coincidence. And the Biden administration thinks that you're stupid to say that, oh, well, we put we're tracking that money, that they're not going to use the exact money that we gave them to use on terrorist attacks. Yeah, maybe not the exact specific money. That's like saying if I give this person $1 and then he uses another dollar that he had to spend it on something else, and now I say, oh, well, he didn't use the dollar that I gave him to buy whatever else he bought. Yeah, he can use other money that he has now that you gave him money to replace that. So they could have used the money. We gave them $6 billion. They can move $6 billion from a different area of their budget to now use to launch an attack from Hamas on Israel on October 7th. So, stuff like that, the United States is continuing to show weakness to Iran, not only Iran, but China, Russia, the whole world, really, all of our enemies. Just like apparently the Biden administration was thinking about taking the Houthis off of the terrorist organizations list for the United States. That's basically a surrender. That's a white flag to the Houthis that you won. Your attacks on ships and hurting global trade has worked, and now we're going to take you off the terrorist. You doing terrorist acts, now we're going to take you off the terrorist list. Please stop. That's the United States. The United States is saying that they lost the war in the Red Sea to the Houthis, and that's complete and utter weakness to these countries in the Middle East, giving them what they want. That's not a smart way to go about things. These aren't diplomatic people, right? You have to show them strength, because especially when you have terrorist organizations. Yes, they're a terrorist organization. The Houthis in Yemen are terrorist organizations. You can't just go start shooting at and enabling trade from other countries in the Red Sea. You can't just start shooting at ships in the Red Sea just for the heck of it, to say that you're supporting the Palestinians in Gaza. You can't just do that. I mean, that is a terrorist attack. To hurt global trade in such an important part of the world like the Red Sea. So many ships come in and out, not just the United States, but countries around the world. You can't just hurt trade globally just for the heck of it because you can. That's terrorism. And the Biden administration saying, oh, well, maybe if we take them off the terrorist list, that maybe they'll stop. They're stupid. They're idiots because they're weak people. They don't know how to show strength to enemies, to, organizations like the Houthis saying, oh, we'll take you off the terrorist list. Just please stop. They're not going to stop at that point. You're only enabling them. So that's the method the Biden administration has gone about with Iran and all of its proxies. Really, all the issues in the Middle East stem from Iran. The United States likes to talk about a two-state solution being the answer. Yeah, it sounds good on paper when you realize if Iran is not dealt with and we continue to enable Iran, a Palestinian state only enables Iran to build a stronger proxy of Hamas in Palestine. So I would love for the Palestinians to be their own state. If that possibility of Iran using that to build a stronger Hamas, if that wasn't a situation that would happen or a possibility, then yeah, I'd be all for a two-state solution. But we have to be realistic. That's not a realistic thing for Iran to not use a Palestinian state to create a stronger organization of Hamas and a stronger proxy to then attack Israel later. The Middle East will be, I wouldn't say completely solved, because I mean, everybody is anti-Semitic towards Israel in that region, it appears. But the situation in the Middle East would greatly improve if Iran is destabilized and we continue to hurt them to where they can't develop nuclear capabilities, which it seems like they're pretty dang close, and stop enabling them and giving them money saying, oh, well, they can't use this for terrorism. That's so utterly stupid to have that line of thinking. You have to show strength to Iran because that's the only message that gets sent to them. Diplomatic weakness does not, you're not going to give them what they want and then they're going to give you what you want in return. No, they're just going to keep taking from you. So you have to continue to show them strength, and the Biden administration is largely to blame for this because Trump hit Iran hard and was hard on the Iranian government to where, they were sanctioned greatly, and people like Soleimani had a target on their back where, look, we don't mess around with you. If your leaders who are threats to not only us, but globally, I mean, they're just terrorists. Anybody who is sad that Soleimani left this planet doesn't know truly who he was. He was a monster. But, the Biden administration wouldn't have the spine to do something like that because they're weak and they're scared of Iran. They're scared of China. They're scared of Russia. They are weak in their foreign policies. So if we continue to let Iran dictate things in the Middle East, this is what happens. When you have terrorists dictating how things go in the Middle East, regional wars like this is what happens. The United States even sort of bashed Israel for conducting that airstrike in Damascus, killing 7 Iranian leaders. Because now they're like, oh, well, now Iran's going to get involved. Oh, what do we do? Instead of saying, good job, Israel, you're taking away, you're putting out these people who are threats to your country. Good job. Good on you. That's a good thing to do. Instead, we're saying, oh, Israel, now Iran's going to get involved. What are we going to do? It's weak, and we don't have control of the situation at all. We're just continuing to scramble and trying to appease Iran. While Iran is dictating things, they're in the driver's seat, and they know it. So they don't have to rush to strike Israel. They are going to take their time and know that they're in the driver's seat in the Middle East, and that's where it is right now because we have weak leaders who are continuing to wanting to enable Iran, and they think, oh, if we give them what they want, then the situation in the Middle East will be good. Just give them what they're asking for. No, idiots. They're asking for it for a reason because they want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And we don't realize that. You have to show strength to Iran. You have to destabilize them if you're going to have any hope for peace in the Middle East because all the issues in the Middle East really stem from Iran. Iran and its proxies of Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. I mean, the Houthis fully shut down, maybe not fully shut down, but they hurt global trade drastically with their actions in the Red Sea. I mean, major corporations just fully couldn't conduct operations and conduct trade in the Red Sea, which is such an important part of the world for trade because we have these terrorists in Yemen who are just wreaking havoc on global trade. That is a terrorist act and a major one. And we're going to say that we're thinking about taking them off the terrorist list to try to appease them and maybe we'll sweet talk our way to get them to stop. No, that's not how these people work. These people are terrorists. They don't listen to weakness. You have to show them strength, and you have to hit them hard to where they can't do stuff like that. Iran is very close to having nuclear capabilities, according to some experts. The Biden administration won't say this globally, and they'll give us the message that they're in the driver's seat in the Middle East. They're not. The United States is losing its power in the Middle East to help protect Israel. And if we continue to show weakness like we have, Israel is at a great threat. So who knows? Maybe Iran will strike Israel within the coming days because I think they're sensing that the United States is not only starting to abandon Israel, but the United States' weakness shown towards Iran, they're not scared of us anymore. They're not scared of that threat of the United States fighting Iran. Like if Iran strikes Israel, they're not scared of the United States coming in and, fighting Iran because they don't think that's going to happen anymore. The U.S. is continuing to show weakness and show that they won't fully back Israel if Iran strikes. So when you have a country like Iran getting more and more enabled and empowered in the Middle East, that's a recipe for a disaster. If you want the Middle East to be more stable and to have peace in the Middle East, the answer is to to weaken Iran. And I'm not saying start a war with Iran, start bombing them like people like Lindsey Graham want. I'm saying you sanction the crap out of them. You show them strength in deals to where you show that you're in the driver's seat. And, I'm not against if leaders like Soleimani are, when you have terrorist leaders like that who are a threat to everyone globally, not only the United States, but its allies of Israel, yeah, they should have a target on their back. They shouldn't be safe. And, Iran, look at the situation when Trump was in office. Iran wanted to show strength to its people, and they sent some, they did what we did recently to Iran. Iran sent some fake missiles that were not intended to hit any bases just to show its people, look, we did something, right? That's what the Biden administration just did to Iran. When our 3 soldiers were killed in, I can't remember where they were based, but they were in the Middle East, and, it wasn't Iran directly, but the IRGC, like some militias connected to Iran, killed 3 soldiers. And what did we do? We told Iran, get everybody important out of the area so we don't start a war with you. Please get everybody out of the way. We got to show our people that we're strong and that we're in control in the Middle East, and we're gonna strike some of your meaningless targets just to say we did something. That dictates to you who is scared of who. The United States is scared of Iran now. And when Trump was in office and he showed the Iranians strength, Iran didn't want to start a war with us. They were scared of us. We took out Soleimani, and instead of starting a war back with us, they sent some show missiles that were not intended to hit any of our bases. They were scared of us, and that's how you have peace in the Middle East. And coincidentally, during Trump's administration, there was the Abrahamic Accords in the Middle East, and one of the biggest peace deals in the Middle East ever. And coincidentally, you look now what was in place during the Biden administration. Saudi Arabia and Israel were looking to, embark on historic peace deals, and they were talking about establishing a railway from the Red Sea to Saudi Arabia through Israel, and they were going to collaborate, and it was a great sign of progress in the Middle East between Saudi Arabia and Israel. Saudi Arabia, the biggest Muslim country in the area, and guess who wanted to throw a wrench in that? Hamas and Iran. When you look at the situation when Trump was in office, when the Abrahamic Accords were being done, Iran didn't interfere with that because they were scared of us. And when Israel had deals set in place with Saudi Arabia, they weren't scared of the United States with Biden in office, and they threw a wrench in that, and October 7th happened. And now the Middle East is on fire. Not only the Middle East, look at Ukraine and potentially what could happen in Taiwan. This is what happens when you have weak leaders in office. When you have weak leaders in charge, bad things happen. You have strong leaders in charge who show countries like Iran strength where they can't do what they want to do because they're scared of us. Peace can be accomplished. When you have weak leaders who bow down to terrorists like Biden is doing right now, this is what you get. You get chaos. And now Iran potentially about to strike Israel directly. You have a regional war in the making in that scenario, because when Iran strikes Israel, which appears to be inevitable at this point, especially with the ceasefire deal getting shot down, you will have countries like, Jordan potentially. They're probably less likely. It's probably more likely for Hezbollah to get involved, which is a very sophisticated organization. I do not think Israel alone can beat Iran and Hezbollah. I just don't think that can happen, because I don't know if Israel can beat Iran if Iran sends all of its, if Iran goes 100% in on Israel. I don't think Israel wins in that fair fight. Iran is just too strong militarily. They'll put up a fight for a while, but eventually, Iran, the bigger country, I feel like they'll start to wear on Israel, let alone, Hezbollah and Iran against Israel. This is not taking into account any U.S. support for Israel, because I'm not sure how much the U.S. will support Israel in that scenario. Look at the policies we've had with Israel ever since October 7th. At first it was strong, and now starting to go down, and it appears that we're starting to abandon Israel. So the U.S. doesn't back Israel, and Israel gets in a fight with Iran, and then let alone Hezbollah. You also may have countries like Syria get involved. Iran is the head of the snake in that area, and all the people who hate Israel, Iran is sort of the big dog. for them. So if they see Iran get directly involved in the war, that will encourage other countries in the ring of fire sort of around Israel to get involved. You have a full regional war in that scenario. Not good for Israel. So this is what you get when you have weak leaders involved. They're not scared of the United States anymore. And I'll talk about this later in the podcast. We have those same terrorists in our backyard through our wide open borders. And the FBI has even admitted this. So, even if the U.S. did get involved, then they can just activate those cells within our backyards. Now we got a problem on our own hands. So we can't fully support Israel because we're trying to get rid of the terrorists and wreaking havoc in our own country. This is what happens. You have weak borders. You have weak leaders in charge. This is what happens. So all that to say, it's not looking good in the Middle East. Escalation, we seem to be inching closer and closer to escalation from Iran. When Iran eventually does strike Israel, I think it's simply inevitable at this point. They have to. They have to do something. It depends on what level that will be. But the ceasefire not getting reached today, that may be soon because tomorrow, I think, is the end of Ramadan. It's not looking good. And you can thank nobody but Biden for that because he's shown weakness towards Iran. And when you let countries like Iran be in charge and hold power and be in the driver's seat, you get chaos.